We are on to the next chapter, chapter 4, with Nestor, and we'll see what happens next. And this chapter starts out with ABP, ABH. Always be positive, always be happy. Mom drilled these two mantras into me about 3 deployments ago. It doesn't matter that I drew a complete blank today when my math teacher asked where I was from. Not important that Mom lost half the kitchen dishes when a box fell off the moving truck on the highway. While Dad is halfway across the world, as far as he's concerned, everything is fine. I know that when Dad is deployed, he views himself as a soldier, husband, and father in that order. He has to, so he can get his job done. And Mom says we have to help Dad do his job the best he can. But sometimes it really sucks being his last priority. I finished my email to him telling him about Talib, his new friend, and not mentioning the pudding-flicking soldier wannabe bully, or that kids seem freaked out by something in the woods. As far as he knows, New Haven is a small, boring town with no annoying animals or mysterious threats lurking behind the trees. Well, half of that is true. I close my laptop and go downstairs to Abuela's kitchen. The smell of pastelitos de guayaba fills my nostrils. Anybody? Those are like pastries made with guava paste inside of them. My stomach reminds me that I skipped the questionable bean burritos the school cafeteria served at lunch. Ay, creme, no necesitan más vinagre, chica, I hear Abuela say. I round the corner and find Abuela in an empty kitchen. Who is she talking to? I grab a plate and pile 3 pastelitos on it. Stuffing my face with Abuela's guava pastries helps me forget my mom has moved me to a non-existent town where bullies flick rejected dessert at you and the woods swallow up your family pets. The sticky pastry crunches in my mouth as the sweet guava filling oozes out the sides. Who thinks your beans need more vinegar, Abuela? I asked, trying to figure out who I heard her talking to. Abuela throws her hands in the air. I've been making frijoles negros for years. I know how much vinegar it needs. She should stick to, ay, no importa. Well, that didn't get me far. Oya, niño, Abuela says, give me a bowl for the beans. I have no idea where Abuela keeps anything in her kitchen, so I just start opening cabinet doors. In a bottom cabinet next to the fridge, I spot 3 small pink tags with the numbers 2, 7, and 9 on them. They're the same as the tags I found in the woods and the one the girl in science class had. Why does Abuela have these? I finally find a bowl and hand it to Abuela. She starts to hum Celia Cruz's Azúcar Negra, stirring a large pot of frijoles on the stove. Her slippered feet shuffle in a salsa on the floor, and she punctuates her song with a flip of her ladle every time the beans bubble up in the pot. So they're from Cuba, and Cuba has amazing music and salsa. I sit at the small kitchen table and spot a framed drawing of a rabbit holding a bunch of flowers next to the stove. Below the drawing, scrawled in blue crayon, the card reads, Feliz Dia de Madres, te quiero para siempre, tu hijo Ralito. I ignore the rabbit my dad drew. It looks like the result of a radioactive experiment. It's sweet that Abuela framed his Mother's Day card. I've given Mom lots of drawings over the years, but she never hangs them up. I think it's because it's just something else she would have to take down when we moved again. Mom comes in from the living room and plops down next to me at the table, deflating with a heavy sigh. Oh, she arches her back, stretching it. With all of Dad's deployments, my mom has moved our belongings all by herself 5 times. If she were a superhero, she'd be La Empacadora, faster than professional movers, able to leap giant packing boxes in a single bound. I set a pastelito on a plate and slide it over to Mom. She puts her arm around me and squeezes my shoulder. You know your dad doesn't like guava, she says, once again rubbing her thumb over Dad's wedding ring hanging from her neck. That man is crazy. At least I know you'll put your dish in the dishwasher once you're done, unlike him. He's not that messy, I say, shaking my head. Ah, not that messy. You'd think a military man would be better at making the bed or folding clothes. I look at Abuela, and she gives Mom a sympathetic smile. I press the pastry crumbs on my plate with my finger. Mom does this every deployment. She always goes through a phase where she complains about Dad. It makes it sound like she's mad at him, but I know the truth. Sometimes it hurts too much missing somebody. So you try to convince yourself you don't really need them. And you think that trying not to love them so much makes it hurt less when they're gone. It usually doesn't work. And your first day, how was it? Abuela asked, changing the subject. So one thing I want to point out, that part of the book that we just heard, that's where an author throws in kind of the theme of the book or part of the story. Like we've heard a lot about him missing his dad, but then the author will take a chance to stick in kind of their message they want us to get. You can do that too when you're writing a story. You can stop, ask yourself, like, what is the big message or what I've learned or what I really want my reader to get? And stick like a little bit of a lecture in the story or a lesson. How was your first day? Pretty much the same as the 9 others I've had, I lie, though this was definitely the first time I got smacked in the face with pudding. How many points do I get for that? Mom looks at me, tilting her head in confusion. 10 first days? Has it really been that many? I pushed my plate away from me. Yep, and this time it wasn't even the military's fault. You and Dad decided to move even when we didn't have to. Abuela's shoulders slump, and I regret my words immediately. I'm glad we're living with her. I'm glad Mom and Dad decided we could live with Abuela instead of living on post. I just don't think my parents get how much it stinks having to start over. Well, Mom says, brushing crumbs off her hands, let's take a 10th first day selfie for your dad. I bet you earned 1,000 points for my challenge. I don't bother to correct her and say it was more like -50. Mom pulls her phone from her back pocket and we snap a picture. She tries to get the pastelitos in the shot too, but ends up cutting off our heads at the nose. It's just our crumb-covered mouths and guava pastries. I clear my throat. Abuela, are there lots of animals in the woods behind your house? You know, like scary ones? I chuckle nervously. Mom looks up from her phone. Aren't you a little old to be scared of animals? I thought 12-year-olds weren't afraid of anything. No, it's just that some kids at school were talking about the woods. This one kid lost his dog and this other girl lost goats, I think. Abuela's breath catches in her throat and she coughs. Mom's eyebrows rise. Goats? Cariño, this is Texas, Abuela says, waving her ladle toward the backyard. My hairdresser, he carries a hunting rifle to the grocery store, and the bank raffled off a shotgun to a 9-year-old. There are definitely no animales locos in the woods. They would have been completely destroyed. Ya tu sabes. She smacks her hand together. Mom puts her hand on my back. You don't think they were just making up stories for the new kid, do you? You know, like in Kentucky? I shrug. Talib actually seemed nice. I hope not. Before Mom can respond, there's a sharp knock on the back door. Abuela shuffles over to answer it. The crying girl from science class, Maria Carmen, is standing on our porch. Does Nestor live here? You know, the pudding boy. Pudding boy? I've been in town exactly 3 days and I already have a bad nickname. I mutter it under my breath. Who? Mom looks at me, confused. Abuela moves aside and motions Maria Carmen into the house, winking at me. Maria Carmen's inky black hair is in 6 braids down the back of her head. Her eyes aren't a watery red anymore, so I guess she stopped crying. You should join the trivia club. It meets in Miss Humala's room during lunch. She smacks a flyer down on the table. It's covered in neat handwriting and the border is decorated with drawings of lions, sharks, eagles, and llamas. They're not too bad. A smile grows along the side of Abuela's mouth. I don't like the way Mom keeps looking from Maria Carmen to me and then to Abuela, smirking. I stare down at my empty plate, unable to distract myself with food. Why do you think I should be in the trivia club? Miss Maria Carmen smooths one of her braids with the palm of her hands. Because in science today, you correctly answered all of Miss Humala's questions under your breath. I heard you. Busted. Mom looks at me and shakes her head. He never participates. All his teachers say so. Yeah, Mom, I don't. Waving my hand wildly in the air kind of ruins the whole under the radar thing I've got going on. Maria Carmen puts her hands on her hips, tapping her foot. Well, are you going to join? Mom nudges me. You should join, Nestor. You and your dad are always quizzing each other. She turns to Maria Carmen. They're always quizzing each other. We get it, Mom. The problem with being an only child with a deployed dad is that your mom gets to focus all her attention on you. I think it's decided. You join, Abuela says, pointing at me with her ladle. The look on her face tells me this isn't up for debate. Mom kisses my forehead. That's wonderful, she says. I've got to run. Don't want to be late for my first day. She heads out of the house dressed in light blue scrubs. She's an intensive care nurse at the hospital in Springdale, a few towns over. She's always had a nursing job on post, so this is her first time traveling for work. I'm sure she's going to take a selfie for Dad in front of her new hospital. So you don't usually join things, I guess, Maria Carmen says. Abuela hands her a plate with 2 pastelitos and pulls out a chair for her. I shrug. Not really, not since I joined a soccer team when we lived at Fort Lewis. What happened? I practiced for hours, kicking the ball against the side of our house, drove Mom nuts. I watched soccer drills on YouTube every night, and we moved before my first game. Maria Carmen gives me a sympathetic smile. Well, look at it this way. Trivia Club will give you a break from Brandon. Abuela turns. Who is this Brandon? I glare at Maria Carmen and shake my head. Abuela doesn't need to know about the pudding thrower. No one, Abuela, just a kid at school. Por supuesto, no one. I'm sure, Abuela mumbles as she sits down with us. Thanks for the pastelitos, Senora Lopez. You make the best ones I've ever had. Abuela beams with pride and squeezes Maria Carmen's hand. Don't worry, Nina. They'll find out what happened to your goats. It'll be okay. I know, thanks. She takes out a pink tag from her pocket and sets it on the table. I just wish we could figure out what took them. Abuela doesn't respond, so I point to the tag and ask, what is that? Maria Carmen rubs her thumb over the tag. It's an ear tag. We put them on our goats to keep track of them. I don't tell Maria Carmen that I found 2 of them in the woods. She seems scared enough already at what might be out there, and I definitely don't tell her that Abuela has 3 more tags in her cabinet. Suddenly, Maria Carmen pushes back the tape from the table and says, I have to go. She turns and says to Abuela, please don't tell my mom I was here. I give them both a puzzled look, but they don't clarify. I step outside and watch her disappear, wondering about the goats and why her mother wouldn't want her at our house. Cuervito, perched in the tree in the yard, screeches above me. So you survived your first day and you already got a girlfriend. Things are looking up for you, kid. You'd better go away, I whisper, worried Abuela will hear me talking to the local wildlife. There's only so many annoying raven comments I can take. Cuervito screeches and beats his wings. But your abuela said, well, never mind. I stomp my foot on the ground. What did she say? Cuervito ignores me. He sails off, but not before pooping on the garden gnome. I turn back into the house and set the table for dinner. As I put down a second plate, a noise in the backyard catches my attention. I look out the window and spot Abuela. She's marching off into the woods, a large kitchen knife in her hands. Bum ba da. What is Grandma going into the woods for with a kitchen knife? Why does
That's not suspicious at all.
I know. Why does Maria Carmen not want her mom to know that she's been at their house? And who is taking those pink tags off the goats? Oh my goodness, so many mysteries.
And also the the animal that they said it had or ate like goats or took the goats and stuff. There's this mythical creature. Like I know this isn't placed in Mexico, it's placed in Texas, but I forgot what it's called. But there's like this mythical creature.
Really? Because on the back of the book, and you might not have heard us read it, it says here that they're being seized by a tule vieja. Vieja means old. I don't know what tule means. A witch.
Okay, that's not what I thought it was. Okay, never mind.
So it could be exciting. There's going to be some magical stuff in this. Okay, friends, that's it for our book. Until next time. Does anybody have questions about the language arts lesson this morning? 8:01, did everybody get their quiz done and read through that lesson? Yes, go ahead. Ask your question, Javen. I'm not hearing
Well,
that.
it's not really a question.
Yes.